Welcome to the very first episode of Sports Creatives Anonymous, the podcast for those behind the scenes of making sports look good. Whether you're a newbie, been in the game a few years, or really just trying to figure out what the hell a sports creative even is, you're in the right place. I'm Clayton Jones, your host and fellow creative with more than 20 years of experience in the game. I want this to be a place where sports creatives feel seen, they feel heard, and most importantly, they feel at home and a sense of community because this can be a very lonely job. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first obvious question is, what the heck is a sports creative? Well, in short, it's someone who makes sports look as exciting as they feel. They translate that action on the field onto the screen. Um, they come in many forms. They are videographers, they're photographers, they're graphic designers, social media managers, communication professionals, writers, and so on. Often these worlds overlap depending on what level you're at or what you're doing as a business. At the Division One level or as an individual entrepreneur, oftentimes you're just doing one of these jobs. At the D2 level and below, where you are going to be wearing many hats, you're probably responsible for most of these jobs. Um, Obviously, being a videographer and a photographer is pretty self-explanatory. You're the person behind the cameras. Graphic designers are those, creating all those great social media game day, commitment, and championship graphics. Social media managers are those who are taking all this stuff and putting it on to, you guessed it, the social media. Of course, there's communication folks. I know the old school term is sports information director or SID. Personally, I don't really love that term because I feel like this job has outgrown that nomenclature. But there are those that are responsible for the website, for pre-games, post-game wrap-ups, working with the media and doing all kinds of different things, probably often working with all these other positions in terms of photographers and videographers to put it all together. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of other different positions that we could talk about that are probably within these realms. But more than ever, though, these roles matter because it's not just what happens in the game, but how it's told, how it's shown, and how it's shared. The creatives are shaping the story, they're building the brand, they connect the community with these events. Sports is entertainment, and creatives turn it into a moment, a vibe. And nowadays, like, if it doesn't get posted, like, does it really even happen? So, how do you get into this business? Well, there's not really a set way to do so. There's many different ways, which is great. And it's finding your passion and finding your strengths. I'll go ahead and share a quick Cliff Notes version of how I got involved. Um, I actually went back to college. I went to the military for a little bit. I had played sports all through high school. Needed to kind of figure some things out. So I went in the military, got out, and I needed an elective. And so I decided to do journalism. And I ended up being asked to be the sports writer for the little JUCO I was at. And I'm like, sure, cool, why not? I played sports, I understand it, whatever. And I kind of fell in love with working in sports and being a reporter. And so I ended up finishing school there, transferred to the University of Oregon, where I eventually became the sports editor of the newspaper there, covering the Ducks for a few years, and got out of college and decided to get in the newspaper business because that's what you did. Well, even in 2005, that wasn't exactly a thriving business, and the future didn't look great. I ended up eventually in New Mexico, where I was the sports editor of a paper there for about a decade. But even then, I knew the writing was kind of on the wall, and I need to figure out some different things. Plus, I was feeling really pigeonholed just being a writer. So even early on when I was there, I actually picked up a camera for the first time and kind of fell in love with getting the great shot and taking photos of my own events and all that. So, but I always knew there was a little bit more. I'd helped out at the local JUCO there and helped out with their website and kind of enjoyed being able to do the different things that I could do there. Um, Being able to be creative in so many different ways. So I decided to take a chance, completely changed fields, and became the sports information director at Dodge City Community College in Dodge City, Kansas, where I did everything. And it was a baptism by fire for me. So it was definitely a growing experience. I learned a lot. Just being able to be thrown into it and learning all the systems and learning how to run events. And so fast forward from my time in Dodge City, and in less than a year I was working at the Division 1 level. On paper, like, it was where I wanted to be, but in reality I felt kind of stuck. I felt pigeonholed. There was just so many different ways I wanted to be creative, and I couldn't really do that at the Division 1 level because there are specialty people kind of doing everything. And I was just writing game notes and running a social media and running the website and doing a lot of media stuff. And it wasn't always my favorite stuff, my favorite aspect of doing the job. So I tried another Division 1 school, hoping it might be a little bit different and I could be a little more free with my creativity. That didn't really work out, and so I got out. I stopped being in the business and thought I would go do something else because I thought, oh, this isn't for me. But of course, like any cautionary tale, I got pulled back in. This time it was at a Division 2 school in New Mexico, and it was just something different. I had way more control, there was more freedom, more space to actually be creative, not just to react to the chaos that was kind of happening at the Division 1 level. And I realized this is what I've been chasing the whole time. I did hit a point of burnout, and I think that's something, a topic that we'll reach later on in terms of work-life balance and finding boundaries. But I am back at it, doing it right now. I'm Division 2 head of athletic communications. I'm also I've started my own business in the last year as well. So that's something I'm also going to be touching on in the podcast. So it's not only going to be about collegiate communications or sports creatives. I definitely want to hit, individual businesses, solopreneurs, media businesses, and anything else that has to do with sports creatives. Because obviously, it's not just college athletics; it's pro athletics, there's high school athletics. There's just a lot of different avenues that we could go. So if you've ever questioned your path, pivoted hard, or walked away just to come back a little bit stronger, you're not alone. That's the beauty of this creative life. It's not linear, but when it clicks, it clicks. This podcast is also going to be a place where we're going to talk about the struggles and the wins. We're going to be honest about these because I think it's important for everybody to know what you're walking into, what some expectations should be, and frankly, there's not enough talked about the real stuff that happens, which there's a lot of great stuff. I love working in sports, and it's something I tell my wife because she's kind of the only one I ever try to complain about my job to, unless it's fellow creatives, which I'm not around as much because I work at the Division 2 level and I'm kind of the only one doing what I'm doing in my office. But I only really person I complain to is my wife about any of these kind of struggles because frankly, no one wants to hear it, right? We're all lucky to be working in sports, but it doesn't mean that there aren't things and hurdles that we need to overcome. So as much as I want to talk about the wins and all the great things, I also want to talk about the struggles, the hard parts, and be real about it because I think that is important. It's good for all of us to hear. It's good for all of us to work through. And sometimes, like I said, it's a lonely position. But if there's somebody else, if somebody else hears me, I should say, and they're like, man, I feel that too. I'm not alone. I'm not the only person. I think that's what's going to be key about this. I want to build community. I want to grow. So why does this podcast even exist? Why did I want to do this? Frankly, I just wanted a place where we could build community as sports creatives and give somebody, even if it's just one person, two people, or whoever, a sense of camaraderie because a lot of these places we are the only people doing what we're doing. And yeah, I think it's important to feel like you're seen and you're heard. Whether you're brand new, you're stuck in the middle, or you're 10 years deep wondering if it's too late to pivot, this is going to be a place for you. The sports creative grind is wild. It's exciting. It's exhausting. It's everything all at once. And it's easy to feel like you're the only one figuring it out on the fly. But honestly, and spoiler alert, you're not. I want to talk about the wins, but I also want to talk about the messy middle, the missed deadlines, the clients that text at 11:42 p.m., and the anxiety that comes with running events, shooting things, the job hopping, the moments you question your entire life because just something doesn't feel right about either something you've created, as simple as that, or just maybe a job decision. But most of all, I want you to leave each episode with something, a laugh, a new idea, a little clarity, or even just a relief that someone else gets it. I decided to call this Sports Creatives Anonymous because I did want it to be a group. I wanted this to be a community because community matters. Not in like the fluffy let's hold hands and vibe way, which maybe we can, I don't know. But in the real way, like the hey, I've been there too kind of way, Community is the group that, you could text somebody and helps you get through a 5-game weekend, or it's somebody sharing a Photoshop hack that saves you 2 years. 2 years. I mean 2 hours. It's laughing at the chaos with somebody, celebrating like the little wins, the little graphic that you got out so fast or whatever else, the great photo that you took, or venting when you do have a great graphic, but then you realize that you put the wrong score or you put the wrong logo of the team that you played. We don't need any more gatekeeping or competition between each other. We need connection because we are the only ones that understand what we do. We need people to learn with, to grow from, and lean on when this job gets heavy, because it does get heavy. I've walked away. I've done it twice, actually. So it's something that I think needs to be talked about more. Work-life balance, mental health, all these different things that we don't talk about, particularly in a job like this where you can work tons of hours in a short period of time for months at a time. While in the end, it may all even out. Even during those times, though, it can be very difficult because this job does get heavy. And frankly, it's a lot easier if you don't feel like you're alone doing it. And that's what I want this podcast to be. I want it to be a place where you feel less isolated and more inspired about what you're doing and the creativity that you have. A space where we all, as creative minds in sports, from those just getting into it to people that have been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, we could be real, we could share stories, and we could remind each other that we're building something bigger than just content. So as we wrap up this introductory episode to Sports Creatives Anonymous, if you're nodding along, if you're laughing, you're yelling, hey, me too, during this episode, then you're exactly who this show's for. And this is more than a podcast to me. Like I've said a couple times here, it's a community. I want this to be a community, and it's only going to get better if you guys become a part of it. So follow me on whatever you're listening this on social media. I'm at Sports Creatives Anonymous, or you can follow my personal account at Clayton in Focus, or you can shoot me an email at sportscreativesanonymous@gmail.com. And yeah, let me know if you got a rookie mistake you'll never forget, a coach horror story, a creative tip that saved your sanity. Feel free to let me know. Let me know, your biggest struggles, wildest stories, and just topics you may want us to tackle here in the future. So thank you again for joining us for this first episode, and we'll see you on the next one.